Welcome to the Raising Values podcast, where the traditional family talks. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. You can support the Raising Values podcast through Patreon. Phil and Gillian are behind the mic, and we hope you enjoy the show.
And welcome back to Raising Values. We are not alone this morning like we usually are, and I'm suddenly realizing that we have a desperate need for a Raising Values background from when we actually have a guest.
Yeah,
so we always have
now that
tons
you
of black
mention
area on the screen. But
I don't like that.
I know it's one of those.
I'll do that today.
But we do have to introduce our third and fourth co-seats for the day for the audio listeners who can't see what we're talking about. This is Brock and Sara Hathaway.
Yay.
Who we know from Prep Broadcast Network, and we've known Sara as an author probably even before we were on PBN, and we've been harassing each other at Prepper Camp for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years now, Sara?
Yeah, something like that. 4 years. I think 4 years. Yeah, this will be my 5th, I believe.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Close enough.
Yeah.
So welcome to the show. The topic was going to be the families that prepare together, but first we have admin work to do.
Yes. Okay. So we are 68 days away. The only reason I know that is because there's a counter from the Women Who Prep Conference. It is online. It's an online conference, April 20th through the 23rd. You can go to our Instagram and our Facebook feed and the show notes. Yes.
Yeah, pretty sure.
And the show. It's always a question if Phil has put stuff in the show notes. To go on to the link to purchase your tickets. Again, it's online, so you don't have to go anywhere. You can stay in your PJs. And Phil and I will be discussing incorporating your kids in the prepping lifestyle for the Women Who Prep Conference. And then I'll be joining some other women doing a
Q&A?
Yes, it's a Q&A, but it's also, we're going to do a little session about prepping in urban and suburban areas. And then we're going to do the live Q&A after that. So they can, people that come to the conference can log in and we'll see your comments and questions in real time and be able to answer those. So April 20th through the 23rd, get your tickets. There's prizes. Let's see, I'm going to read this off really quick.
So before you talk about suburban prepping, do we need to discuss the booby traps we're going to set up in the front yard, or leave something to the imagination?
Maybe we just leave that off. Maybe we don't tell all of our secrets on a live conference. So there's going to be a mix of live and recorded sessions, community groups just for attendees, pre-conference live chats with the community, giveaways, and then you get recorded access through July 2024. So it's not so bad. All right. Anyway, so that's our only thing we needed to talk about this morning, except that we're super happy that the Hathaways are here. Yay! That's
All right.
it. Yeah.
So for our listeners, I think it's appropriate to start off with like an origin story. Like, y'all are superheroes. Like, where y'all came up, how y'all met, how y'all got into preparedness, and what brought you to today. Because I feel like I only know about half of this story.
Fair enough.
Probably.
So Brock and I were wild and crazy kids, doing the wild and crazy kid thing.
We all have that phase.
Right. And I was getting off work one day and I didn't have a ride home.
I picked her up hitchhiking the first time we met.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And that didn't end in you getting getting your smile elongated, so that's a positive.
I made him drop me off at the entrance to the subdivision. I wouldn't even let him drop me off at my house. I was like, no, that's not cool, man. So he's like, are you sure I can just drop you at your house? I'm like, no, you can't.
No, I don't really want you to know where I live.
Right? Yeah.
We live in a small town where everybody knows everybody. But I don't want you to know where I live.
Yeah.
So ever vigilant, and then he would come into the gas station that I worked at with his shirt off, looking all manly. And
Uh-oh, Brock.
so I actually had this weird guy stalking me at the time. And one night he was in the gas station, the weird guy, and Brock was in there too. And so I was like, oh no, haven't you met my boyfriend, Brock? And Brock's like, all right.
All right,
Yeah.
this works for me.
Well, that was easy.
Yeah. So there's some other tidbits to the story that probably aren't for live camera, but
Gotcha.
we were going to go in the Air Force together. And we wanted to have base housing together. So we got married. And then we decided we're not going to put our
Well,
bodies.
when we learned she had education, so she'd probably be an officer, and I had no education, and I wouldn't. Yeah, you guys will never be
They're
together.
like,
Yeah.
So we can't live without each other. I was also training to play Olympic ice hockey at one time and found out that it's 11 months out of 12 that I would be playing ice hockey instead of with Brock. And I was like,
And Fletcher was around by that
Yep.
time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that wasn't going to work either. So we've just always been together. We're just really good friends right off the bat. And everything
Yeah,
is
this year will be 26 years married and 28 years together.
Wow.
Yeah. I
That's
was married
quite
when
an
I was 19.
accomplishment.
Thank you.
Especially nowadays.
I was about to say, especially nowadays, that's quite the
Yeah.
accomplishment. It's getting even weirder to say that I've been with Phil for 20 years. So that's in our generation, that's not a thing that happens.
And
I
look,
had no
next
idea
year
you
your
made it
guys'
this
marriage
far
will be drinking age.
Next year, I will have been with Phil longer than without Phil.
Right. That's when I got together with Brock when I was 17. So I was like, well, now he's raised me more than my parents have.
Right?
So, which
Don't
is
say
scary.
that. No,
Right?
that's what she didn't mean that. You
I mean,
didn't raise me.
I'll lay claim to that.
And then as far as like the preparedness lifestyle, both of our family, like his family is
Yeah, my grandparents were farmers in North Dakota. My grandma actually lived to be 103. So, like, listening to stories of her from when they'd get ice delivered by wagon.
Oh my
And-
gosh.
I mean, they had nothing. The family took care of the farm and all that, all the way up to her doing emails.
it was like 12 kids in one house when that tornado
Jeez.
hit.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they, today's day and age, we call it prepping.
Yeah.
But like for them, it was daily living. So
Right.
I'd have to go work out on the farm every summer. And so I've been canning and doing that kind of stuff since
Mhm.
I was knee high to a grasshopper.
And
Yeah.
then same, like my family always grew up, we were more urban than that, but we always had the family garden. We grew up trap shooting and stuff like that. So it was just part of life. So as soon as we got our own place, it was like, oh, we got to have a garden. That's just
Right.
how it is.
Right.
And then
So
when
it-
I published the first book, everybody's like, oh, you're a prepper. I was like, what is this?
I'm a what?
I'm a
Okay.
what? All right, whatever.
That was actually going to be my next question, was like, at what point because like Gillian and I have talked about the fact that like a lot of some of the things that we have integrated into our lifestyle kind of came to us by way of the preparedness community. But then there are a lot of things like getting ready for natural disasters that we just grew up doing, because when you live in North Louisiana, ice storms happen, and when you live in South Louisiana and the Gulf Coast, like you get hit by a hurricane every couple of years. It's just a thing. So there was a certain element of the way we live where it was like, well, this is just what you're supposed to do.
Mhm.
There's no mystery here. And then there were things I brought in more, I guess, based on like my military experience and my experience during Hurricane Katrina, just seeing societal breakdown, where I was like, there's these other things we need to discuss while we're at this juncture. But I guess my question to y'all was like, at what point did you realize you were kind of in a community you may not have intended to be in, if that makes sense? Like, you grew up doing these things because it was y'all's family's way of life, but then you realize there's this other community that sees what you're doing as unusual.
I think it was probably after you published your books and you were really doing the book tours and trying to put that out, that you really started reaching out to other people. You started your podcast
Mhm.
and you started having
we started doing the survival training with Doug.
Yep.
And the amount of wildfires that we had around our house in California really gave us that sense of urgency.
Yeah.
And our survival instructor was like, 5 minutes, you got to be in the house. We're like, what? That's unheard of. Like, do you know how much stuff we have? And he's like,
Yeah.
5 minutes. So we
Yeah.
really worked towards that goal. I think that's what gave it, like I say, a sense of urgency. The community definitely came through the podcasting. Like, have I ever made a dime off of podcasting? No. Have I made just invaluable amount of network and friends and relationships that I value way more than any bit of money? Yes,
Mhm.
hands
Mhm.
down.
Yeah, we feel the same way. There's no
Mhm.
money in this podcast. There's
No.
none, matter of facts. There's
I've had people actually like beginning brand new podcasters you reach out to me. They're like, "Hey, how do you make money at podcasting?" I'm like, "If my name was Joe Rogan, you'd be able to ask me this question." But I don't. I'm like, to me, it's a win if a podcaster can just make the hobby sustain itself financially. Making money on it
Mhm.
is like, how do you make $1 million podcasting? Start with 2 million.
Yeah.
True. Very
Yeah.
true.
It's so true. It's
I
really a
agree
labor of
with you
love.
though. Like the families, we don't joke about it because we mean it when we say, you know, when September rolls around for prepper camp, we're going to see our family. It's like a family reunion to us, and I agree
With
that
people
it
you
is.
actually like.
Yes. And want to, you know, sleep
Yeah.
in a tent with and, you know, sleep down the street from or see every day for 4 days kind of
You
thing.
better like them because
Especially when we all stink or
I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, you better like the people you see at prepper camp because you are going to smell them. You're going to use the bathroom next to them. You're going to shower right next to them. We are all going to get very, very familiar with each other very, very quickly.
it's really not that bad. We don't go out there and become homeless.
I mean,
Well,
isn't that
girls
what
have
camping
their own
is?
stalls in the shower. I found out because the boys were all like, "I don't want to take a shower." And I'm like, "What is your problem?" They're like, "Oh
Okay.
no, the
Wait,
boys
they
are all
don't. You
together."
don't have stalls?
No, no, no,
Yeah,
no,
no,
hang on,
it's all
hang on.
grouped together.
No. So there's an explanation here. So in the men's bathroom, and I'm not shy about this at all because I enlisted when I was 17 years old and did like the whole group showers with 13 other men at a time. So all my modesty was ripped right out of me. But in the men's up there on that hill, there are 2 stalls for the showers, but it's a communal dressing area. So if you happen to
there's a
be
wall
coming out or
split the
going in
shower.
at the same time your stallmate is coming in or going out, you're gonna get to know each other really well.
Wow. No, there's
Again, fortunately
Yeah,
for
it's
me,
totally private for the
I
girls.
yeah,
mean-
it's private for the women.
Uh-huh.
17 years old, showering, 13 shower heads in one room. Like, you were just lucky not to bump butts with somebody.
Wow, you might as well just go take a dip in the lake.
I mean, I would do that too. I'm not shy.
I didn't realize that. That's interesting
Right, that's
news.
what I found out too. That's when you have little boys; they tell you those things, you know.
Right. But yeah, I love going and spending time with you guys and, the whole community that we've come to know through these podcasts and in the prepping community and all that stuff. So I agree.
Yeah, and to me, like, I guess the thing since we got on the subject of prepper camp, but like the thing I love so much about prepper camp is, like, I've heard variations of different people saying basically the same thing of like, this must be like the safest place in the United States of America this weekend. Alternatively, I've heard people ask like, how many AR-15s do you think are within like a 200-yard radius around us right now? And I was
That's
like,
why it's the safest place.
Right.
well, but it's also the vibe, like people have their people just let their kids run loose all over the place, and like we go the extra step of sending our daughter with a radio just so that we can get in
Well,
touch right till her come home.
I don't think the first year, maybe we did, but I remember the first year Piper and I went, we would just walk down the line. Have you seen Piper? Do you know where Piper is? Yeah, I think
Right.
she's on a boat fishing or something. I was like, okay, great.
It is so refreshing because there's just not
Yes.
any other place where you can be
No.
that confident with your children anymore.
Right.
And yeah, I even got a little bit of a reprimand last year for, oh, you shouldn't be, he's coming down here at 6 o'clock in the morning by himself. And I'm like, yeah, isn't that
And?
okay? So yeah. Well, people that love you, they're gonna look out for you. So
Right, right. And of course, no, we don't know everyone that's there, but we do know a good amount of people that are there that know our kids. That I felt pretty confident that at the time, what, she was 9?
She was 9,
9 when
and
she went the first time. And so it was like, yeah, Piper. I mean, that's what we did when we went camping. I mean, there's a story of me and my cousins. We went camping this one year in Arkansas, and we started on a trail. We didn't end on a trail. And 6 hours later, all of the rangers were looking for us because they
oops.
couldn't find the little, group of kids that went for a hike that
it's
morning.
it's a miracle any of y'all live to adulthood. The stories I've heard.
We got in a lot of trouble that day, but I didn't feel like, like one of the trails led right by our tent. So if they were on the trail, we would have seen them or heard them. I just don't feel like it's a place that Piper just can't go and explore and be a kid without the supervision of her parents. And I think that that's what kids need. And that's what they don't get a lot of the time, is just the freedom to be a kid and explore and do. She's not a strong swimmer. I don't remember who she was with.
Christian, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, she was
Probably.
with Christian, but she was also with a man, and I don't remember. Maybe it was you,
James.
Brock. Oh, no, it was
It's
James
James
that
White.
had him in the boat.
Yep,
James
yeah, they all
fishing.
went fishing. Yep.
Yeah, and so when I heard, yeah, she's with James and Christian fishing, I was like, oh, well, she's good. Like, and in the back of my head going, does she have a life jacket? I go into that mom mode. Does she have a life jacket? Blah, blah, blah. But the
But
lake
then you're
isn't
like,
that.
oh, but it's James.
But it's
So,
James, and she'll be
Yep.
fine. And let the girl catch a fish. And
Well,
yeah.
not just that, but like in this community we've become part of, not just PBM, but like the broader preparedness community. Like I would expect a random man seeing a child in the lake in distress, about 85% chance they're just gonna friggin' shuck their shoes and jump in after the kid.
Yeah.
Because that tends to be what this preparedness community is really cultivated. Like, we've drawn people towards us who have come to us because they want to be able to provide for themselves, they want to be able to take care of their families. And people who are motivated by those things tend to, like, you see a woman or a child in trouble and you just, something in your
You're on
brain switches and you go. Like, there's no debate
Yeah.
here.
Well,
A
and
lot
I
of
also,
sheepdogs.
Yeah, it brings out
Yeah.
the sheepdog in a lot of men.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
got to take care of everybody around you.
and I love the fact that I feel like we all kind of go, the adults kind of go, the old ways. Like if Piper was doing something, I know that Brock and Sarah, y'all could reprimand her the way that we would, I get that. And I would hope that that is what would happen with this community. I remember walking up the hill, we were done with classes for the day, and Tommy had Piper with an axe in her hand chopping wood. And I was like, who is this kid chopping wood? And way to go, Uncle Tommy,
Right?
for teaching her how to use an axe. I mean, it was an axe. It wasn't like a little hatchet.
It was a
I'm-
split. It
Right.
was a splitting axe.
and I'm like, all right, my 9-year-old's now splitting wood with another man that I,
Yeah.
met just a few years ago through this podcast.
The first year we took Christian to prepper camp, we were like, well, you can hang out with us or whatever, because we do a lot of booths for the book sales, and we're like,
Yeah.
well, whatever you want to do. That kid was in every class. He was doing blacksmithing,
was
but not
too.
only that, he was doing like Dutch oven cooking classes and things like that. And I'm like, what is this kid? He is
Yeah.
just all over the place, talking with all the vendors. He knows everybody. Now, Christian's working for prepper camp. He's got his own prepper camp sweatshirt. He gets
Oh, I
up-
didn't
we
know
get up-
that.
Yeah, we get up earlier at prepper camp than we do at home. That's why we had to do the late show today, right? But he's up at like 6 a.m. He's drying off the chairs so that everybody's got dry chairs to sit down on.
Wow.
He goes out and does all that, and he just eats it up.
I love it.
He actually missed, there's an academic decathlon at his school. And he was like, man, I really want to be able to do that. But every year it's the same time as prepper camp, the tryouts. And I'm like, well, you can miss prepper camp. And he's like, not for anything in the world. Like, he loves
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
I
So
was
I
gonna say
definitely think it's a great place for your kids.
I do too. There was something else I was going to say about Piper at prepper camp, but now I can't remember. I think that's great though that Christian's working for prepper camp. I'll have to
Right. Yeah. Both the boys.
remember that.
They got recruited. Fletcher does the parking lot, parking everybody. So he's out there with the cones and the
Nice.
super early in
Nice.
the morning.
This
Even
starting to
when
sound like me. This starting to sound like I got the better deal. I just sit in the vendors area and like make, eat eggs and sausage for breakfast, light up a cigar, and pour some booze into my coffee at 7 o'clock in the morning, and just sit there and greet people and say hi and hang out.
Mm, yeah.
That's what I was going to say about Fletcher last year. He was slightly hungover on Saturday out there.
That's why Christian went up by himself at 6 in the
Yeah.
morning.
Yeah.
I was about to say,
Park over here.
I do remember Friday night. I could read the writing on the wall, and I looked at your son, and I was like, "Ooh, you're gonna have a really rough night the next morning because he does not have enough meat on his bones for a hard night of drinking."
No. And he's really good. He's such a fantastic young man. And
Yeah, he is.
he it's moderation. It's probably he's 23. I know what I was doing at 23, and it certainly wasn't being as good as he is. So yeah. So
Same thing most of us are doing at 23.
Yeah, let's not go back there.
well, actually,
Thank
by
God we
then,
didn't have phones that recorded.
by
back
then we
Thank
already
God.
quit drinking because my husband was 21 when we got married or when we got together. So we had already quit drinking by the time I turned 21. So that shows you.
Hmm. Yeah, that was me as well.
But it was like the
a lot
relationship
of
that
walls
brought
being
us
held
out,
up when I was in my 20s.
right? Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So I am kind of curious because this is something that comes up with me and Gillian a lot, but even though I don't think y'all would consider a lot of the things you do as a family to be preparedness related, how do you bring preparedness into the family dynamic, the dynamic between you and your kids, daily life? I think there's this misconception outside of the preparedness community that it's an activity you do separate from adult things, or that it's something weird that not everybody gets involved in. And I do think, unfortunately, there are a lot of families out there where there's one person that's focused on preparedness and the rest of the family just runs around like ducks.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't get the impression from having met either one of y'all that this is not a group activity the whole family's involved in.
Yeah, we do pretty much everything as a family. So
Yeah, I mean, with any dynamic of the family, you guys got to all be a team. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the only way that, in my opinion, it truly works out. And one, prepping to a lot of work. I got two able-bodied little boys that can haul vegetables, can shuck vegetables. They
take care of chickens.
Take care of chickens.
I would
Peel
say
peaches when we tried to make peach wine, which ended up being peach vinegar this year. But
Ooh.
yeah.
Hey, first time we learned how not to do a lot of things this year.
We are going to see if we can distill it for canning later. So, but yeah, they help, when the stuff comes in, we stand for hours and hours. We were doing every song in chicken language when we were peeling the peaches. So it was like, quack, 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 and yeah, laughing and giggling. One of the biggest daily routine, not daily, but whenever we do big shopping, it's the pantry shuffle. Fletcher's super tall and everything, right? I'm like, you're the pantry man, you're on it. So the pantry shuffle. And go bags, making sure that Christian's go bags getting updated. Fletcher hasn't taken everything out of his, using it at all of us,
Yep.
that, and then just really the outdoor activities, big time. I mean, they can help out so much that.
And it's actually just kind of the way we were before we moved out to Texas. We were living on 40 acres.
Wow.
And we were out in BFE. I mean, we were in the sticks. It used to take us about 40 minutes to drive to the grocery store.
Mm.
So when you're living that kind of life, I mean, everything we did together was as a family.
Firewood, because we couldn't afford to heat our house. So it was
wow.
Man, everybody's out there humping firewood all day, go run the quad around, bring it up, do all that. It was a major activity.
Wildfire area. You got to have 200 feet defensible space around every structure on the property. So if we all didn't put in together, it would just be overwhelming. So we've always kind of been in that teamwork fashion. And the more and more we got into the prepper community, it just all kind of flowed and just wasn't ever really a hiccup. We just all worked together on it.
And we're a big believer of treating your children like people. So, like
Right.
some people
Yeah.
are like, oh, well, they have to be a child and experience their childhood, and you shouldn't have them out there doing whatever, they can be out there dragging, they can be out there doing their thing. And especially with young men, when you give them that sense of being strong, being confident, being capable, even if there's things that I could do that I'm like, oh, you got to do this for mom, so you can help out. Oh, yeah, I'm a help mom. I'm big, It gives them that real big sense of accomplishment and understanding that they can do that. They are people. And now, Christian made us dinner last night. So, I mean,
Yeah. Well, and I'm not going to get too much into it because that's one of the things I'm going to talk about during my session with incorporating kids in the prepping lifestyle is, as a teacher, I see it every day. So in the classroom, we give our kids jobs. So today you might be the line leader, you might be the door holder, you might be the mailman, whatever. And it doesn't matter what the job is. It could just be, you get to empty the trash can today. They are so proud to do that job because that I'm going to accomplish something today. I'm going to show my classmates that I can do this. Look at me. I'm the line leader. I mean, they fight over it. I'm the door holder. And it's like,
Right?
Calm down. There are 4 doors to the gym. You will get to hold the door. But I agree. I think, giving our kids, especially boys, that sense of accomplishment that they can do those jobs is so it's just so important for them growing up to be the kids that we can let run free at prepper camp kind of thing.
Empowering.
Yes, thank you, that word. Empowering. And it is for girls too. I see it with our youngest at school who get to do whatever jobs they want. But then I see it with our daughter, she's preteen now, so you give her a job and she grumbles. Pray for Phil. She doesn't have teen boys. He has one teen girl. But she grumbles at jobs, but you do get to see this accomplishment that comes in this empowerment that comes when she can accomplish those things and get those jobs done, or shows that even making dinner, like now she's the
designated ground beef cooker in the
yeah,
house.
like
She's got her own little recipe for how she likes to season it, and I'll be the first to
Kristen
admit
does
it's
his
really
meatballs.
good.
Yep.
Yep.
And don't you dare season the meat, Mom. It's good how you do it, Mom, but I'm gonna come do it. I'm like,
Right.
That's
And some
fine
people
with
are
me.
like, oh, they can't, they can't do that. They're just kids. They shouldn't have a knife. They shouldn't. What?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? When are they supposed to magically develop these
Yeah.
skills?
I mean, it's our job as parents to teach them how to be
Yeah.
adults later in life.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
For a couple
Yeah.
years now, I've been really big on whenever Piper would want something in the kitchen, she'd be hungry. I'd be like, why don't you come to the kitchen and you and I will make it together?
Yeah.
Or if she was like, hey, Dad, I don't know how to. I remember we went through this whole thing. She had a little bit of a fear about turning on the gas stove. I
Yeah.
don't know why.
Yep.
I think she thought it would explode. But I would sit here
Or
and
microwaving things.
oh yes, microwaving
Oh,
things.
Christian's had his share of microwave fun. That's for sure.
Yeah, Piper left a spoon in a bowl one time, and that light show.
We were doing
eyes were
the
this
microwave for a
big.
while after that. It's like
he got like a sty on his eye, and my mother-in-law gave him like a Bosch and Loam like little eye thing you could put on, and we had jumped in the shower, and
he's like, well, I'll just warm it up in the microwave.
it's supposed to be like 10 seconds or something.
He did
He
10
did
minutes.
10 minutes.
Oh,
no.
We're getting out of the shower, we're like,
What is that
what
smell
is
in
that
the house?
smell? And he's just like, well, I don't know what happened. I'm like, you don't know what happened? Oh,
it's melted
boy.
everywhere. It is
Oh my gosh. And
Oh,
then Nina
You
in
live
the
and learn.
comment is saying that her daughter lit a plate on fire.
Yeah. he put one of the Tupperwares. He's like, "Oh, I need to warm up water." So he takes the Tupperware and put it on the stove.
Oh no.
Oh
He's like,
no.
no, we're not doing that. Like it still has like you can see where it hit it. Still,
But here's
good.
the thing. I see in my travels on social media, Reddit will make you question the trajectory of the entire human race, by the way, if you ever just want to like really feel good about yourself. But like I've seen like people that are like 19, 20, 21 years old asking questions about like why can't you put metal in a microwave and how do you cook food and all this stuff that I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, we learned this as kids. Like
Yeah,
the hard
by
way.
the time
Again.
by the time you move out of your parents' house, you are supposed to know how certain things work. And it scares the crap out of me when I hear somebody say, well, let your kids be kids. I'm like, well, you can let your kids be kids, but when I wasn't running around with my idiot friends when I was like 6, 7, 8 years old, I was passing my dad tools, or I was learning how to do woodworking or fix stuff around the house. Like,
Absolutely.
there's time to. The difference to me between when you're a child and when you're an adult is that when you're a child, most children's natural proclivity, no, not upset with them for this, is they would rather goof off and have fun than do work. When you reach
Everybody.
adulthood, whatever age that happens at, for some of us it's fairly young, for some of us it's like 60.
Never.
But when you when you reach adulthood, you reach this point where like you just naturally understand, I have to do this, I'm gonna goof off later.
Right.
Like I said, for some people that,
Absolutely.
like Brock said, sometimes that doesn't happen, but that's where adulthood starts. It's not at 18.
Well, and that's
But
why
I-
I say, like, when are you supposed to magically develop those skills if you're not there? And, kids are going to make mistakes. Like, as a parent, you just have to understand that. I think what happened was we made society really easy to live in. And so taking away so many of the chores. And then it became easier for parents. I think it's really the easy way out. They're like, well, I could have my kid just in front of an electronic device. I'll just take care of it myself, because that way I don't have to worry about teaching them. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to waste time. I don't have to get
I
frustrated.
don't have time
any
to
of that.
do that right
Right.
now.
So, but then the kid never understands how to do that. They think their life is just going to be handed to them, and then they just get to sit there and play video games.
I mean, I do think that's like an aspect of laziness, though, because like
I agree.
I
Totally.
I understand. I understand, but I don't agree with the idea that let kids be kids. I understand, but don't agree with the idea of like, I want my kids to have an easy life. That's making their life easy is not my job. I've literally told my daughter on several occasions, I'm like, I love you dearly. I want you to be happy, but making you happy is not my job. It's yours. Making your life easy is your job. It's not mine. My job, and I've told people time and time again, as a parent, my first and last job is to be their teacher, is to teach you stuff. My job's not to make you happy. You get married one day, have a husband, it's his job to make you happy. But it's not mine. My job's to prepare you for a life where you're going to have to act like an adult and exist in the adult world, and things are going to be expected of you.
I bought a book a few years ago. I had to go to a conference for work one time, and it was when I worked at the Children's Museum. So it was all about children and all that stuff. And there was a special guest speaker. His name is, you may have heard of him, Gever Tolley, and he's an author. And he wrote the book, 50 Dangerous Things You Should Let Your Kids Do. And it goes from things like piecing fireworks together and letting them light them, and placing pennies on railroad tracks, and microwaving a spoon to see what happens, and things that not necessarily are going to hurt your kids, but things that we did as kids just because there was no adult supervision and we just wanted to do those fun things.
Right? Yeah.
And,
last row generation.
Right? Yeah. So, I mean, sun came up on the weekends or during the summer. We were off on our bikes and didn't come home. Literally, I know it sounds cliche now, until the streetlights came on.
Yeah.
And we lived in a small town. It was a small town, but we lived in the town. So if we weren't home, my mom would go stand on the front porch and scream our names. And I swear you could hear her all the way down to the middle of town where we probably were. And we were like, oh, shit, we're in trouble. Like, get home.
My mom had
Allegedly.
this whistle.
She would whistle too. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But those are the things that we were doing. Like, I there are times where I think back to those days where I'm like, I really don't know how we survived. I mean, teeth were knocked out, arms were broken, collarbones were always broken. Somebody was always in a cast. Somebody always had like bruises somewhere. We were raising wild cats like in a fort. I don't know if y'all built
Uh,
forts,
oh
but
yeah.
I mean,
Oh
we
yeah.
had forts all over town and we had to go
Mhm.
ride our bikes to go check on the forts and feed the cats. And how we didn't die of some crazy disease, I don't know. But that's when it was really good to be a kid. And that is like how I want Piper to grow up. There's a picture in a video of Piper, and I think she was probably around 8, maybe 8 or 9. We may have just come back from prepper camp. And I told her, I said, go outside. She just got a new ferro rod. And I said, go make a bird's nest and light it on fire. I want you to go start a fire in the front yard. Really, Mom? You want me to? Yes, go out
Yeah,
there and
do it.
practice using that thing and light the thing on fire. And you'll have to go back and look at it, but the picture and the video when that bird's nest lit up, I don't think it was a core memory she will never ever forget,
Right.
you know.
Right.
But and
That
that
was
was us.
when we did the survival school. Fletcher was like 13, 12, 13
12,
then.
13, yeah.
And we were out in the rain one time, and Roy's like, well, where did Fletcher go? And here he is out on the beach starting his own fire. It was just great. And for him, that was his first moment when he was like old enough to be part of like the adult team. And
Right.
oh man, that was like the best. We were
Yeah.
team carnivore, and he had his role, his position, his deal, and he was capable of doing it. And so really just working with them all the way up to that point creates that where they have those skills to be able to do it. Also, one of the scariest things for me in my book, in Day After Disaster, the first one, Erica rescues Star, right? And Day After Disaster was really just a thought process for me about like, what if I was away from the home when stuff went down? And then how would I approach certain situations? Like, here's this woman getting violated. Do you put yourself at risk to go and help them? And you might never see your family again. They'll never know
Mhm.
what happened to you. Or do
Right.
you just, do you just slink off into the night and whatever, lady, sorry for you kind of thing,
Yeah.
right? So it was really that thought exercise. And then with introducing Star's character, here's this little girl, 8 years old. Now her parents are both dead. She has no other recourse but to rely upon the person who saved her. Now, granted, it was Erica. Great, great fiction.
Always good to be
right?
saved by the
by
heroine.
by the heroine of the story,
Yeah.
right? But what if you weren't? What if
Yeah.
your kid had to rely upon some 40-year-old pervert who came along and
Yeah.
was the only person that, said, hey, kid, I'll take you and take care of you. So I wanted my kids to, from the time I raised Christian, he was from birth, and then pretty much from the time Fletcher was 5 years old, I wanted them to have self-defense skills. I wanted
Mhm.
them to feel confident being able to defend themselves against anybody who came to assault them or take them. And then I wanted them to have the skills to go, you know what, stuff just went down. I don't have mom and dad, but I know how to do this. I know how to
Yes.
I
start my
can build
fire.
a shelter. I can start a
Right.
fire. I
Right.
can gather
I don't need that
local
adult.
food.
So if
Right.
that's the only adult that's coming along and I don't trust them, I don't need them. And I
Right.
can do it on my own. And so that was really the biggest thing to me, was to give them those tools to be able to
Mhm.
go take care of themselves, to have me in their heart and not have me there.
I mean, I can remember having conversations with Piper probably as young as 4, maybe 5. Conversations about like being aware of her surroundings. One thing that me and my co-host on Matter of Facts are really big on is wargaming, which is you're given a scenario, think through all the pros and cons of whatever actions you have at your disposal. And it always goes back to like the way I was taught in the military of you make a plan, you might have to abandon the plan, but a plan is better than no plan. And I used to talk to Piper about, hey, if this happened, like God forbid, dad gets in a car wreck, dad's knocked out, what do you do?
Mhm.
Or I
Right.
used to, like, every now and then there'd be this scenario where she and I were out shopping by ourselves, and I would have to put her into a car seat. And I told her, I'm like, if I'm putting you into the car seat, you see somebody walking up behind me, just let me know. And she was like, why? Now she's 5.
I think
And
she was younger
Right.
than that. She was
yeah,
like 3 or
Yeah.
4.
okay. But I explained to her, I'm like, well, what if there's like a little old lady walking behind me trying to get to the front door? I don't want to back into her and bump into her, knock her down, hurt a little old lady. So just, be my eyes.
Right.
That was not the reason why I wanted her to watch behind me. I wanted her to watch behind me because I was trying to belt these 4 scrabbling limbs down into this car seat, and I couldn't watch my back. It was one of the few times when she and I were out shopping together when Gillian was working where I was completely vulnerable because I didn't have my head watching my surroundings. I was focused on
Right.
what I was doing. And when she got a little older, I told her the reason why I wanted her to do that. But it came to pass one time because somebody was literally just trying to skirt between 2 cars, right behind me to get to the front door. And she told me, hey, there's somebody behind you. And I snapped my head around, reached my hand down to my belt just in case because I didn't know what was going on. And it was literally a little old lady. But to me,
Yeah,
it's one of those situations where, like, I feel like there is a proclivity within the preparedness community of, like, we don't want to scare our kids, we don't want to scare our spouses, we want to take that burden upon ourselves. Because again, I think that is kind of a personality thing with people that fall into preparedness of being willing to take that burden upon themselves for other people. But I always try to impress upon people. I'm like, there was a time in our family where I was the only one involved in preparedness.
Yeah.
Gillian hadn't bought in yet. Piper hadn't.
She was too young.
She was too young, and it was all on me. And I feel like now, all these years later, we have a much more well-rounded preparedness viewpoint. Our plans are much more well-rounded. Our preps are so much more three-dimensional and deep than what I had envisioned because I only saw things from my point of view, and I couldn't think of all the things that Gillian can bring to the table and Piper
Yeah.
can bring to the table.
Yep.
So, like, that's always been my encouragement to other people is, like, if you involve your families in preparedness, you might have to meet them where they are. Like, Gillian is not going to, I'm not going to fit Gillian for a plate carrier and teach her, like, small unit movement.
Oh, you're
tactics.
missing
Come on.
out, dude.
It's not her bag. But here's the thing. If she came to me and said, hey, these mushrooms and these things you can use to make tinctures to heal diseases, my eyes are going to glass over. Like, I
Yep,
get
fair
it.
enough.
It's interesting, but
Here,
it's just,
Phil,
it's
eat this
not,
mushroom.
but it's not
Don't
my
ask
wheel,
questions.
but it's not my wheelhouse, and it's hers. So that's why I always tell people, I'm like, you might have to meet your family wherever in preparedness they are. Find what interests them or find what they fall into and meet them there, but involve them any way you can.
Well, and that's what Prepper Camp brought to our family. We were able, you were talking about how Christian was going to all of these different classes. I have pictures of Piper's first year there. She's taking notes.
Right.
She's in
Yes.
fifth grade, taking notes at, how to clean a hide. And I'm like, you will probably never ever do that. But you know what, babe? You take those notes and you learn how to
Right?
clean hide,
Yeah.
But she did it in every class that she attended. The two of us, I think, have a lot of the same passions when it comes to prepping. But what the other thing that I was going to say was we live in a time, and you had kind of said this earlier, Sarah, we live in a time now where we just want our kids to be happy. We just want our kids to, have a childhood and, blah, blah, blah. Well, we are raising adults, and that's something that we always say on this show and on Matter of Facts is
Where
that,
did you hear that from?
well, I just said we say that on this show and Matter of Facts. I just gave you the credit.
Yeah,
Like the credit.
my opinion is, they're going to be adults a lot longer than they're going to be children.
Right.
So yeah, let them have the childhood, of course.
Yeah.
But teach them to be an adult, for goodness sakes. What
Yeah.
do we have in this world right now? We have
Right.
these adult children,
Sissies.
and yeah, and that's so. I was gonna say, well, I told you I was training ice hockey back in the day, right? And when I gave up on that dream because I just knew it wasn't going to fit with my family, I'd always wanted to do martial arts,
Right.
and
Mhm.
Brock wanted to do martial arts, and it was our date night, so to speak, that we started martial arts classes together. And we found a school where it was like weapons and the physical training and everything, And so that was really how I started my martial arts adventure, which now I teach self-defense and anti-kidnapping and anti-sexual assault, and I have all these skills. But it was our relationship together and really wanting to share that together, have that activity that we do together, that started us down that path. And then it fed right into our children, because now our children are in martial arts, and they're also learning the skills. And Christian started when he was like 4, and Fletcher when he was like 5. And Fletcher's not much of a fighter, but he's got all the skills to defend himself. And that was a really, really awesome experience for our family. Some of our best family photos are all of us, we're all black belts now. And you just develop this family at the school. And then, it's just such a pure, fun experience to do together, really.
Yeah. Not to
Sounds
mention, sparring is actually some of the best marriage counseling that you can do.
I was
Kick
just
each other
about
in the
to
head
say.
for an hour and then go out to dinner.
And then go out to dinner. I mean,
Let me start Googling the nearest.
In
Yeah.
a controlled
Yeah,
environment.
we used to pull people
Just
in off
remember,
the
I'm stronger
street,
than you are.
honestly.
Yeah,
But-
we were some of the only ones that were doing sparring at the school we were at for a while. And it was a little strip mall place. And we had several nights that people came in
like
off the
off the
sidewalk
street
to watch
just
us.
watch us fighting in the dojang. And I mean, we built so many memories and so many cool experiences through martial arts. And then you
Yeah.
develop the martial arts family as well, just this awesome sense of community. Many people that are doing martial arts are like-minded. They
Mhm.
are into preparedness. They are into knowing how to defend yourself. The discipline and respect and honor and everything that it teaches your children is just amazing. So I would really say, that was great for not only our relationship, but our family togetherness, and then giving everybody those skills that they needed to, like, okay, bring it on to the Hathaways. Good luck,
Yeah.
Mm.
I sparred with Phil when we first got together in our 20s after he had just come home from Iraq. And
Oh, yeah,
that, no, mm-mm.
no.
No, that wasn't fun at all. It wasn't cute or romantic or anything else, because he was still in that mindset of kill. And I was just dead. I mean, I was like, no, I don't think this is something that we're going to do again.
Apparently, I'm a lot stronger than I look.
Apparently, yeah. I mean, it was not fun. There was nothing fun or flirtatious about it.
Unfortunately, I never learned to fight in all my time in martial arts to be fun and flirty. I learned to disassemble people.
Well, I was a 21-year-old, yeah, it was ridiculous, but we never did that
Well,
again.
that's why you have to start from ground zero with an appropriate partner first.
I was
Before you
just
work
trying
up to
to
kill mode.
I was just trying to flirt with my boyfriend. He
Right?
was trying
He's
to kill
like,
me.
I'm gonna destroy you now.
Yes. Finish her.
Way to go, Phil. That's really encouraging.
Flip the switch.
Way to teach her some self-defense there. This is how you
Right.
get destroyed, honey.
No, go cry in the
No
corner,
wonder
bitch.
she doesn't
In-
want to put the jacket on. Come on now.
In my
Right.
defense, I think the problem was I might have got smacked in the face, and that was what flipped the switch. Like, I was trying to take it easy on her, and then
And then she gets one, and it's like, oh, now you're dead.
Oh yeah, now you're mine now.
that's the way we're gonna do this. Okay,
That's
game
called
on.
emotional control.
Well, I didn't injure
It wasn't. Yeah, you did.
her. No, you were fine. You didn't have to go to the
It couldn't have
hospital.
been that bad. You stuck around.
I remembered it. That's what happened. I remembered it. So, but now him and Piper kind of not squabble, but they squabble at night. Like, for some reason, it's like right before bedtime. That's when Piper's energy level.
Got to get her
You know.
energy out.
Before
Comes
dinner
up-
and before bed. Yep.
Yeah. Well, and so these two are like slapping and punching and kicking and headbutting and all this other stuff, all from our bedroom to hers, which isn't that far of a distance. But I get to the point now where I just lay in bed and just listen to the ruckus coming from
Chaos.
across the hall, the chaos. And it's like, I'm wondering, like, oh, was that her being slammed onto the bed, or was that him being like punched in the gut? Like, what was that?
Yeah. With
But
Fletcher,
it's,
now Fletcher's that big.
Yeah.
And so there reaches a point where, for him to advance his skills, he can't be sparring his mother anymore. There's a line there, right? Like,
right.
okay, when they're so big, right? But then when they're there, for him to really advance, he now needs to be sparring somebody else, like I say, other than his mother, because he can't go hit his mom on accident and then he's like feeling horrible or whatever,
Right.
So, but like
on accident.
yeah, on accident. But like we're the best tag team partner. Like anybody tries to attack me and Fletcher, we're like the best tag team. So there is that. I know what Phil's saying. There's certain sparring partners that when you do get that one hit on, then they want to elevate it. Then they want to elevate it. Then they want to. So it is something that you, through years of sparring in a controlled environment, you learn to work on those things and get that under control. Understand the appropriateness of your partner. Understand that everybody wants to go to work on Monday. We're not here to actually
right. Without a
So,
busted lip.
yeah. So and training with my family, that's definitely something that we've come to. Is Fletcher and I used to be able to go, hard together. But there you reach a point where it's like, no, we can't anymore, because if we push past this line, right, then we're into everybody's getting upset or things like that.
Yeah.
Again, super cool experiment to do with your family, though, because now you understand when we're in a survival situation and I see that look in your eyes, I'm probably not going to keep poking at you anymore, because we've now reached we need to cool down. We need to take a break moment. We can't one up and one up and one up and then, right. So I think that it's just a fantastic family experience to train together.
It does
That does sound good.
It does kind of get me thinking, though, because you mentioned like recognizing that look in the other person's eye. Like there was a point, because again, like I was kind of the first one in the family to dip my toe into preparedness, and coming from the military, like we kind of already had trained into us this idea of like, like assessing threats and looking at your environment. And I always had, like, Gillian noticed, I don't know what point in our being together you noticed it, but like when we would sit down, my eyes would always be scanning the environment. Like I would never totally disengage or totally relax.
I think I noticed that from the time you got home from Iraq. I mean,
but you expected it to fade over time, didn't you?
No, I never did.
Okay.
I didn't. I knew who I was getting in a relationship with, and I figured that it was probably going to stay. I mean, and even now, I know my place is with my back to the door when we go places. Like, I just know that, and there's nothing wrong with it.
I'm like, I'll cue you up. I'll cue you up. Please don't put me with my back to the door.
Yeah, and I'm watching the kitchen or I'm watching the back of house, and he's got the front of that, the door. I've always, well, I can't say always. I haven't always, but that is something that being with you has taught me. Like I am now more aware of my surroundings. I walk through school or I walk through campus or anywhere really, and just assess my surroundings and where are your exits and where are the entrances and where's someone who's wanting to hurt other people or control a situation. Where are they going to come from? What are they going to do? Most likely they're not going to walk through the front door. Sometimes they will, but for a lot of reasons they won't, especially, I hate to say this kind of stuff, but especially on a school campus, they're probably going to find the easiest way in. That's going to be the less detectable.
And it's commendable too, because a lot of people don't even think about that, Gillian. They just
don't want to.
Oh no.
walk through life. They don't even
want to think about that.
They want to stare at their cell phones. They want to put their head in the sand and not look up and not be aware of like, oh, Phil's got this side, I've got that side.
Yeah, it's like when we do the drills at school of intruder on campus, the first year that we did it, I went straight to admin and I was like, look, we're dead. Like, this is not going to work. Like, we're all going to die here. Like, you're locking
Right.
the doors with one bolt, and we're covering the windows. And, you know, now we do have some I think some better safety measures in place. Of course, I don't think any school is going to be the
Foolproof.
safest place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've offered to take a day off work and do a penetration test on the school.
But
Like,
I do think that we are in a little bit of a better place, and a lot of the things have changed. Like, you know, it's no longer just hide in the corner. If you can get your kids off campus, get your
Go.
kids off campus.
Yeah.
And because I told him, I was like, I'm busting out a window if I have to, and I'm taking my class. Like, we're not going to be sitting ducks, you know, kind of thing. And so, but yeah. But I do. That's what I do. And so I'm always thinking that. I think a lot of times because I worked at the front desk of the school, so I was the first person somebody saw when they walked through the door. And we kind of joked about it, although it was kind of not a joke. But I always told everybody, well, I'm the first one dead. Like, if they come through the front door, I'm it. Like, they're going to shoot me first because I'm the first person that's going to see it. And so yeah, it's kind of a morbid thought, but it's true. You know, you have to think about those kinds of things. But anyway, went down a road.
Yeah.
Went down a really dark road.
The
there.
insurance situation in California is like rapidly unraveling. And boy, we got some angry people. Oh my gosh. Like, with good reason. Like, a lot of people's bills have doubled and things
Yeah.
like that. So you're paying, you know, $200 one year. Now you're going to pay $5,000 the next. And that's not a happy call, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not in the office. I work remotely. But I'm like, people in the office, you might want to be aware of like how ticked off people are getting, because they're like maybe more left leaning, okay? And they're like, oh, everything's sunshine and roses, and we're having unicorn farts this morning. And I'm like,
accent.
does anybody have a knife? Or, you know,
Right.
they're like, well, a firearm, what? You know, I'm like, I'm just saying, like, somebody might want to think about it as some. You have your COVID plexiglass. You might want to have like
Right.
bulletproof plexiglass.
I have
people are
told
getting
my
pissed.
administration I am willing and able to carry. I will be one of those teachers
Right.
that, you know, if they would allow it, but that has not come to pass. But
Yeah.
Yeah. And on
I used
like
to
in-
carry, but I know nobody in there does, and I worry about them. You know,
yeah,
takes one moment for somebody to go postal over that stuff,
I do keep screwdrivers at my desk.
right?
I
have,
am I am the technology teacher, so it works.
Improvise.
That's right.
No, but what I was going to say before we chased the rabbit down the hole was like, you've learned over the years that when I get that look in my eye, like something has elevated my attention beyond the standard. I'm just looking and checking people out. Like, somebody has done something, or somebody is presenting themselves in such a way that I'm suddenly like, the switch is flipped, and I'm like, something about this guy gives me a bad vibe, and I'm going to be very, very focused on him for a minute. And like, you've noticed that, where you've asked me like, is everything okay? And I'm like, everything's fine.
Or what are you watching? What are you seeing?
Yeah. But I think that like the family being engaged in this in preparedness and situational awareness together, like, you know, Gillian. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket surgeon to see that side of me come out. It's pretty obvious. But for Gillian to not immediately like jump up and swerve around and look at whoever I'm looking at and then alert them that somebody's looking at them, you know, like, she has that cognizant of mind to know that something has my husband's attention, and if I need to get on the floor, he's going to make that loud, and he's going to make that very apparent very quickly. But like, there've literally been times where I've told Gillian, I'm like, this is what I'm seeing, and if I tell you do XYZ, don't think, just grab Piper and run. And like, you know, we will very quickly just sit there and put together a really quick little plan and be like, I've even told Gillian that, you remember the time we were on a date, chips and salsa at the little Mexican food place that wound up burning down. And I saw in the next parking lot over, there was a man and a woman obviously having an argument. I say man and woman, they were probably in their 20s. But it looked like the guy was trying to shove the girl into the back seat of his
I
car.
do remember that.
And like, Gillian, she saw the look of mine and asked what was going on, and I'm like, I'm not getting involved because so far it's just an argument. But if he tries to put her in that car or if he hits her, I'm gonna get up and you call 911 and tell the operator my husband's getting involved. He is armed because I want them to know there's a man on scene who's a friendly, and I want them to know that friendly has a gun. But I
Hmm.
wasn't going to sit there and
Yeah.
watch a potential abduction or an assault take
Right.
place.
Just sit there and let it happen. Right.
Yeah, but at the same time, I told Gillian, I'm like, I guess this also goes into that whole conversation about the family being in preparedness. Like, I know enough of the law and the use of force rules to know at what point in this escalation I can get involved as a citizen and not put my own butt in a sling.
Hmm.
But I mean, I don't know how we got to this point in the conversation. It
I
was the
don't
look.
either.
A lot of squirrels.
A lot of them.
But yeah, I think it's just super important to have the whole family involved in preparedness. I think y'all probably see preparedness the way we do. Of we came to this lifestyle because we want to be able to take care of ourselves, take care of our families. Like I don't do any of the crazy stuff I do because I mean some of it's fun, genuinely, but most of it
Right.
I
The
do with a sense of
hiking, camping. Oh, yeah.
yeah.
That's just
But
fun.
but the majority of it is done with like out of a sense of duty to my family. These are things that I think need to be done so that I can take care of them, they can take care of me. And I feel like there's this huge like Venn diagram overlap between caring for your family and preparedness, and I sometimes I struggle with how to communicate that to people outside of the preparedness community.
Sarah always had a good analogy. You always carry a spare tire in your car, right?
Hmm.
Why? Because you're a
Just in
prepper.
case.
You're preparing yourself for if you get a flat tire, you can
Hmm.
keep going. And that's kind of what us in the prepper community do is we're just trying to prepare ourselves for whatever situation comes up. It doesn't have to be natural or anything
Right.
else. It could be you lost your job. But hey, I
Yeah.
got 3 months worth of food in the pantry.
He
I
when
don't
your
have to worry
hips
about food for a little bit.
when your hips went down and we had all of our food
Yep.
because he wasn't working. Now how are we going to buy groceries? So and there's nothing we could do. He couldn't barely move. So yeah, I mean, there's times when those stores have come in like handy so big time, and that wasn't our house didn't burn down or we weren't in war or we weren't going into a long-term survival situation. It was just
Hmm.
he couldn't work for a while,
Yeah,
and
and that's what people I mean, we always talk about, I mean, even with y'all and at prepper camp is, there's such a stigma around preppers, but kind of moving it back to how Brock started this episode was that's just the way things were. We're doing exactly how people lived 100 years ago, and it wasn't so uncommon because if you didn't do these things, you didn't survive. Well, now we've got electricity and phones and, all these different distractions, which I put my tinfoil hat on there, but all these different distractions of today's world that we forgot all those things. And you see a comeback. And I think it's great. I think some of it is, you see it on social media a lot. And so you see all these women who are making gardens and learning how to can and they're romanticizing it and all that stuff, and it's like, okay, that's great, I'm glad you're prepared with all of that stuff, but when shit really does hit the fan, are you really prepared, kind of thing? It's, are you doing this for views and likes, or are you really trying to prepare yourself? And so I think what we've talked about on this episode is great because there's so much in the nitty gritty of prepping, and it's not always a romantic garden with your flower dress on and loving on your goats and your chickens and everything. It's not always fun, but just having that help me with my words, having that knowledge that you are taken care of if your hips go out, if you lose your job,
Mhm.
if
yep.
a hurricane hits or a fire is destroying your town. Just knowing that you are taken care of, that you've already gotten all those things thought through and planned and ready to go. I, it you know
You're not
There's
standing there like the deer in the
right.
headlights going, which way do we turn? Which way do
Now
we
which
turn?
way do we
Which way-"
now what do we do?
Yeah.
Now what do we do?
Mhm.
You know, when the trees fell on the house during Ida, there were obvious holes in our preps.
Chainsaw.
We fixed those things. We were able, thank God they weren't life threatening enough that we weren't able to fix those things, but we did fix those holes in our preps that we figured out the hard way. But we also had the comfort of knowing, okay, we have no water. There's no water pressure because the tree fell on the whatever that is out there.
The holding tank that serves the. So we're on city water, but the holding tank that serves this whole subdivision is about 75 yards that direction, and a pine tree landed on it.
Oh,
So yeah,
nice.
so we had no
Uh-huh.
water, no power, obviously. Trees are on the house, and it's August heat in South Louisiana. But we
Oh.
knew
And we couldn't walk out the front door because
Or the
like
garage.
it's just when we
was-
opened the garage door, part of the tree that had fallen down had like jumped through the garage door at us.
Oh,
It was a mess.
but
awesome.
we knew, we had the comfort of knowing we have the water, we have enough in the garage or where, you know, all of our preps for food. We knew what we had enough propane to cook with. We were good. Plus our house has gas. So we knew for those things they were good. And luckily the holes, like I said, weren't life threatening enough. But prepping isn't rainbows and unicorns. It's not for the weak of heart. It's thinking about really, really hard topics. It's thinking about what happens if my husband is no longer here. It's thinking about, you know, what happens if I have to leave my home and bug out in the woods for a couple of days? Or, you know, it's not always fun topics to think about, but I just think it's so much more refreshing to know that we've thought about those things,
Right.
you know? It's not
And you
just, like
have
I
that
said,
plan instead of
and
no
you have
plan.
the plan.
Yep.
You know, it's like, you know, I would assume that parents still do this. I don't know if they do, because I see my students sometimes when we have fire drills and it's like, what is that? What do we do? We had the fire alarm go off in our house a couple of years ago, and it was me cooking.
Where there's smoke, there's dinner.
But no question asked, and I knew what was happening. And me and my brother-in-law were in the kitchen. Piper ran it. Like she heard that fire alarm go off, and she knew exactly what to do. And she wasn't sticking around to see if it was mom's cooking or if there was a real fire
Fire or
in the
not.
house.
And
She ran that drill, and it wasn't a drill, but she ran it. But
me and my sister were in the front yard, and like we heard the fire alarm, and then about 6 seconds later, the front door opens up, and my daughter sprints to the mailbox. And
I'm here.
And well,
Love
but
it.
that was, she didn't stop, turn around, or slow down until she got to the mailbox.
she didn't even ask Mom, "Are you okay?"
Deuces,
She
y'all.
was
Bye. I'm
She's
good.
like, I know what my role is, and my role is to not ask questions and to get out of this house. Screw you, Mom.
But here's the thing.
Love
When
it.
she and I discussed that years ago, she had asked me, what if shouldn't I make sure you and mom get out of the house? And I've told her very, very to the point. I'm like, it is your mother's responsibility to get her out of the house. It is my responsibility to make sure y'all both get out of the house. It's your responsibility to get your own self out of the house. Like, don't stop and wait for me or mom. We're both adults and we're both capable of busting out a window if we have to, and we're gonna get out. I'm like, your job's to get to the mailbox so that when I get me and mom to the mailbox, there's one less reason I have to run back into the house to go looking for you. Because if you're looking for me and you're not out here, then you're not safe.
I just think that we're growing up. We're in a time where people just don't want to think about the hard things. They don't want to think about the sad or those scary things, and that's why we're in a lot of the situations that we're in this country. But you have to think about those things, because a lot of them are going to come to fruition, and you're going to see it at some point in your life. And don't you want your kids prepared? Don't you want your
Right.
kids to be able to survive through those things? I would. That's why we do what we do. But I don't see that a lot in
No.
families anymore. I just
And
don't see
people
it a
look
lot.
at you like you have six eyes because you've talked to your kid about the possibility of being abducted.
Yeah.
Like, why would you
Why
scare
would you
them like
do that? Well,
that?
yeah,
Like, no, because if it happens, I want them to know what to do.
exactly.
Like
Exactly.
these are real things that are out there, And you don't have to be boogeyman about it. But,
Right.
yeah. There's times we've been practicing self-defense that Christians, teared up or whatever. Is it better for him to tear up with his parents or freak out when somebody else is trying to grab him?
We've had nights where, Piper was scared. She couldn't go to sleep because of what we had talked about that day. It's, we live, what is this, 12? Interstate 12?
Interstate 12.
Yeah. Which goes
Or
across the entire.
Interstate 10 and Interstate 12, because it's Interstate 10 everywhere but from here to Baton Rouge.
But the interstate goes across the entire country, and so we see a lot of abductions in this corridor of this interstate.
A lot of trafficking, a lot of drugs.
And my little, brown-eyed, blonde-haired girl,
right?
We talked about a lot of things. That's one of the reasons why her dad talked about always looking behind him. That's why she is to hold my hand even at 11 years old. She is to hold on to the basket. She is to stay with me and look and see if there's,
be aware.
I can't tell you how many times I've been followed in a store here.
Yeah.
They just...
Even Christian and I, when we were going to prepper camp last year in Louisiana,
of all places,
Yep. We were at one of the truck stops, and it's just Christian and I. And here's this big dude starts following us. I'm a girl. He's got to go in the boys' bathroom. So we have to split. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like freaking out. So luckily Fletcher had come up behind me, and I'm like, you keep eyes on your brother. That guy went in the bathroom. He only washed his hands.
Yeah.
And then we come out, and we're all walking away from the store. Fletcher went to Arby's to go get something. So he peeled off of us. Here comes the guy again, right up behind me and Christian.
Yeah.
And I pity the fool, but luckily
he had no idea who he was following.
Right. And Brock
that would have been
comes
fun
up.
to watch.
Brock came up from the truck right then, and here there's the dude peeling off.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? And then I was like, it was a great teachable moment for Christian though.
Yeah.
I was like, see, you're just Mr. Aloof running around. No big deal, right? Well, it could be right there, man. Clear and present danger. So, we have to just be alert. Group.
And I've also talked Piper through like all the classic bull that somebody might try to sell her. Like, oh, your dad sent me to come get you. Yeah. And I've literally told Piper, I'm like, unless that person is a literal police officer with a badge.
We have a code word. We have a family code word. So if that person doesn't know our family code word, no, it was not.
Yeah.
I haven't even gone the route of a code word, because to me it's just like, unless you're talking to a police officer, I'm not sending anyone you don't know.
Yeah, they can dress up like police officers though.
Period. Yeah.
True.
Right?
True. This was years ago when we had this conversation when it wasn't as much of a thing.
Right. Exactly.
But I've also been very, very upfront with Piper. There have been times when like I would leave her in the truck and I'd take the buggy like back to the front of the grocery store and then come back. And I've always told Piper, I'm like, lock the door, unlock it when I come up, make sure it's me before you unlock it.
For me,
like, don't.
With the boys, mine is they have a fake cast on, right? Oh, can you help me get this out of the car? I'm trying to unload these books or whatever. Can you help me? Well, my boys would be like, sure, we can help. Yeah. We're Mr. Helpful, because they are. And I'm like, dude, watch out for that, because that, you just never know. So that's why that was the one I was really concerned about with them.
I think that was Ted Bundy's game for a while.
Right? Yeah. No. I'm like,
not to go down that road or anything, but like,
yeah.
Anyway,
family code word. It works good.
Yeah, we'll definitely have that by the end of the day.
Make it a code word that's so freaking awesome. You know what? I got the perfect family code word. No one will guess it, and Piper will never forget it.
Okay.
That's
good.
Same with us. That's ours as well.
Sounds good. Well, it has been so much fun having y'all on this morning. I miss you guys. I can't wait to see you in real life in
I missed
September.
you last year. I was like, where is Gillian and Piper? What is going on?
Everyone asked me where
I know. I've already got a substitute lined up for next year.
Ticket-
She kind of
tickets
looked
are
at me a
bought.
little crazy and she's like, really? You already have those days? I'm like, yes, please sub for me because
They-
I'm not missing it.
When they found out at the school, because we go every year, and they always unexcused absence. You guys
So
are going
we're
on
always
vacation.
in trouble
Unexcused.
with
We're
the
always in trouble at the
truancy.
school. Yeah,
Truancy.
yeah, right. So we're always in trouble. And this year we had parent-teacher conferences like right after we got back from prepper camp. And we were talking to the teacher about, yeah, we go out to prepper camp. Or she thought it was just so cool. She's like, man, I would go to that, all this. Somehow, magically, the absences were excused this year.
Ah.
There you go.
I was like, sweet. So,
Nice. Yeah.
you never know.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys again. So totally appreciate it. We'll have to do this
Yes.
again. This was a lot of fun.
Right? It's a Sunday morning ritual.
Absolutely.
I know. Now we got to go record some lines because I think we're still behind. There's like,
you're at the first- okay, so I am so
Don't
excited.
worry, so am I, and I live with her. So.
I am
that actually
so,
makes me feel so much better, Brock.
I am so excited for season 4 of the Changing Earth audio drama. I almost have it all written already. I literally have like 5 more episodes to write, and all 16 of them are done. So
I
like,
love
you guys,
it.
you guys
has
are
been
gonna be
so
getting
much
scripts
fun.
so fast.
No,
Yeah.
I think this has been so much fun to do. And I don't know if you've listened to my last lines, and I won't say anything.
I haven't yet.
I was talking to you,
Yep.
Gillian to Sarah in
Right.
these last lines, and it's part of the recording, but yeah, I think it's been great. And like I said when we were on your show last time, my kids searched up, they Googled my name and like, you're on IMDb, and I was like, yeah,
Yeah, of course. Like
I'm a
performer.
voice actor, don't you know?
Yeah. And now you're finally out from oh no. Well,
Oh,
sorry.
I'm not giving anything away.
I told you
can't
I've been
give anything
writing
away.
too much. I've been
Spoilers,
writing
spoilers,
too much.
spoilers.
Spoiler. You can't have the author on the show.
I know,
So,
right? Well,
Yeah,
it has
it's been a ton
been,
of fun.
yes,
and,
it has really finding myself.
I'm so so I was just thinking about this the other day because I listen to everybody's voices. Like I'm working on the audio drama pretty much every day at some point because it takes like 2 hours of audio editing for every minute that you hear. So I am pretty much just continually every free moment that I have, I'm working audio drama, and I get to listen to all my friends' voices all the time. Like I hear Phil all the time. I hear Gillian all the time. I hear Doug all the time. I'm like, oh, I wonder what they're actually doing. So it's cool that way.
Making lunch, making dinner, making breakfast, TJ.
Yeah, right. I know. Poor it's just the way it is with DJ. Nothing you can do there.
The only place we missed out on being part of this audio drama is that I don't have a villain voice. Because if I'd have been TJ and you would have been what was your
Teresa.
character's name? I'm drawing
Teresa.
Teresa.
Yeah.
God, we could have played that up here at the house.
No, I'm glad that you weren't TJ. I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we didn't get to play that up at the house. That was
You got
some
to
of
be
those.
the good guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have a villain voice.
I will just say
Doug has
that
a villain voice.
I will say that the last little bit of lines that we did last week for you, I was screaming through the walls in the office, going, "I knew it! I knew this was it, the one! I knew this was the one she said." Phil's like, "Is everything okay in there?" I was like, "Yes, it's fine. Everything's fine. I'm just recording my lines."
Sarah, gosh. I know. I'm always like, with new female performers, I'm like, so do you mind like getting captured and beaten on for a little bit? 'Cause,
Right.
that's kind of a thing.
Can you throw
that
your
you did,
voice in such a way?
Right?
Oh,
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's been so much fun. But all right. Well, I think that's it. I think that's our episode. Again, it's been a blast having y'all on. So we'll have to do it again. But
Where can everybody find you, Sarah?
yeah.
Brock,
Changing
I was gonna
Earth
say, I don't-
series.
Changing Earth series.
.com.
If yeah,
.com.
I will make sure I include that in the show notes. Brock, I would
Yeah.
ask where people find you, but I don't think you want to be found.
No, you can find me right next to Sarah.
That's it. That's it. I love it. Yeah. ChangingEarthSeries.com. And yeah, you need to put that in the show notes.
It should be done.
Everything's there. The audio drama, the podcast, all my books. That is my hub. So ChangingEarthSeries.com. And yeah, listen to Phil and Gil playing some fun characters.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks again for being on. Thank you all for watching or being a part of the podcast. And we will see you next week. No, we won't.
No, we won't.
We won't see you next week. It will be a day off because we will be in Texas.
Actually,
Oh, hey.
we will be back on Sunday.
Okay, maybe. You know us. We don't
Maybe.
ever know.
We'll see.
We'll be in Texas next weekend. But anyway, all right, guys. Well, we'll see you when we see you. How about that?
Thank
Bye,
you, guys.
everybody.
Thanks,
Bye,
guys.
y'all. Thank you. Bye.